of 2% of GDP on defense by 2030. Here is a military analyst who thinks this country should consider going a lot further and explore the purchase or the building of nuclear weapons, a domestic nuclear arms capability. We're joined by Canadian Jean-Francois Belanger, who is now an assistant professor of military operations at the Royal Danish Defense College. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. You wrote this striking op-ed in the Globe and Mail, and you said perhaps Canada should think the unthinkable, get some kind of domestic nuclear weapon capability.
Well, yeah, so I think the piece is part of the broader security concerns that have been arising, and you would expect years, but past couple of weeks and months as the Americans are restructuring their security outlooks. But the piece, at least the idea behind the piece, is to bring Canadians and Canada, myself included, into thinking about hard and difficult questions. Mm-hmm. What does it mean when our number one ally, in the first place, decouples from European security and also mentions that they're tired of paying for Canadian security collaboration, and on the other hand, threatens annexation over time? And what the piece, and what I argue in the piece, it's not necessarily for now developing a nuclear capability, but at least shoring up what we call our nuclear latency, meaning bringing our capacity to develop one to the point where if we are in need and if we decide as a nation, and we can talk about the trade-offs of doing this, we'll be ready to go if that's the decision that we make.
One thing we'd need, presumably, would be highly concentrated uranium isotope. We'd need to build the centrifuges, for example, for purifying uranium. So that would be costly.
Yeah, so it would be costly, but in our case, especially if speed of the essence, the idea would be to go the plutonium route, mostly because it's faster and because what we need to buy is more restrained. We would need reprocessing facilities, and those are dual use. And I think it's also written into a larger question about nuclear energy into Canada.
The plutonium, now you'll correct me if I'm wrong, our current CANDU systems don't produce the material required for nuclear weapons. So where would we get that stuff?
Well, so in this case, at least the idea would be to use byproduct of the uranium that we use in other systems, and this is where we get into the hypothetical, and it depends on where we are and what the international situation is. Canada could buy, for example, some of the material, but what I want to stress here is doing something. So this proposal goes counter to our current international commitment, right, mm-hmm. through the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And the idea here was born out of two things, right? So one being necessity, if we ever are in a position that we need it, but more importantly, there seems to be a window of opportunity opening internationally. And when I say window of opportunity, I don't necessarily mean something positive. I mean, there's a drive for the acquisition of nuclear weapons in the world at the moment, right? And we've all seen the headlines. Poland is looking, at the moment, they're looking as to seeing if they could base French nuclear weapons in their territory. Whether they're going to stay there is an open question. Germany had talks about doing the same. Are they going to continue to talk about nuclearization? Now, South Korea, on the other hand, is talking about outright nuclearization. So what does it mean for the Non-Proliferation Treaty? What does it mean for these commitments? And is NATO as an alliance, for example, going to rethinking, or at least are the European allies going to be rethinking their stance on non-proliferation? If that happens, well, how does Canada position how does Canada position itself in that discussion? Because we don't have the options that the Europeans have. I don't think it's credible to ask the UK and France for what we call extended nuclear deterrence, right? The nuclear umbrella. First, because the UK have a program that is coupled with the Americans. France has an independent force, but you and I can agree of what we would expect as kind of a reaction if Canada bases French nuclear weapons on its territory. Like, it's a ludicrous idea. So therefore, Canada in this case would be left to its own design to make it work. And when we look at what's going on at the moment, Europe is busy, right? So if we think about a conflict, let's say the future in the Arctic or something like this, or if God forbid, and there was another excellent piece in the Globe and Mail this weekend making scenarios in case of what's happening when the Americans actually escalate. And I want to stress, it's scenario based. Am I saying that the probabilities that it's going to happen? No. Is it going to happen tomorrow morning? No. But we're in a world now that we actually need to look at the actual chance that something like this happen. If this happened, well, then becomes a little bit unclear what happens. But and even then, the main threat being the Russians in the Arctic. But what would happen to Canadian security given that the European are bogged down in Europe? Their capabilities are not are like ours, like depleted, and everybody's trying to rearm. So Canada is a bit. There's a question of, are we going to go it alone, and so on and so forth. So the whole piece is inscribed within this kind of broader, larger hypothetical of where we're going.
Should we keep it simple and just have small atomic bombs, or should we think about going all the way and actually developing hydrogen weapons?
So I think at the moment, I don't think we're there. I think at the moment, what we need to look at is to shore up the credibility of how we would hypothetically deliver these weapons. So it means that we need to then place emphasis on weapon systems that could actually develop them. So we're at the moment looking into our own satellite launching technology, right? This is a good idea, mostly because the systems that you use to send rockets in space are the same system that you get if you develop missiles. We need to look into, in my humble opinion, into submarines that are able to deliver nuclear capabilities, even absent Canada having a nuclear capability. And we need to look into air weapon systems. In the piece I talk about probably moving away from the F-35, given that they're American made. But then the problem again there is that the available options are limited. The Rafale is back order. It's going to, like, France has a hard time dealing with demand, and the Gripen has an American engine. But still, it's a question to be asking. But if we move to a different kind of plane, well, they would need to be nuclear capable. And this will bring us to kind of this line of nuclear latency, where we will have first, well, systems that can actually enhance our defense today. And I think it's in line with what we're seeing into what Prime Minister Carney is talking about. There's in the release, there's a lot of uncertainty. We talk about giving the Navy new submarine capabilities, but you'll notice there's nothing assigned to it, and they're not saying that we're going to continue in the path that we are continuing now. So does this mean that we're evaluating weapon systems like nuclear-powered submarine? Maybe. I'm not putting words into the premiers, but that's something like that is doable. But all of this to say that this brings us to kind of a line where if we need to develop and if we need to push into an independent force, well, then we will already have the means to deliver the weapon, making deterrence. And when I say deliver the weapon, I want to be very clear. The idea about with nuclear weapons is not to use them, is that the threat of the possibility of using them provides you a level of security, but that usually is credible when it comes to defending your territorial integrity. Nobody wants to see nuclear weapons used. They're made as what we call deterrents, right?
I wonder if the Canadian establishment will have the courage to actually tell America, no, we don't want the F-35, because that would be such a slap in the face for the American military-industrial complex. Do you think the federal government will have the courage to do that?
I think they may, but it will depend on the international context. I believe that we will get the delivery, and I forget the numbers. I believe it's 16, but please don't hold me up to it. The first leg of the contract. I don't believe that we're going to shred this. I think that we're going to purchase those that are paid for. That we're expected to get, and so on. After that, well, then it depends how our allies are moving. Portugal, for example, is talking about scraping them, and other countries are talking internally about scraping their contracts. If we start to see a cascade, I don't expect Canada to be the first one to do it, mostly because strategically you want to hedge your bet. But I think depending on the next, and I'm not talking the next year or so, I'm talking in the near future, there might be political will to do this, because realistically, there's a lot of opinion pieces being released at the moment stressing Canadian security. I think we're in a moment where Canadians are now more than ever. Probably the last time that Canadians were as tuned in to our security needs was likely World War II, or maybe the Korean War, right? But we're talking far back. So I think we might be in the moment where something like this is possible.
Yeah, we sure are in disturbing times. Francois, thank you very much indeed for joining us.